How's it going, Chumpy? My name is BugTBO and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing the Legendary set and overview with some gameplay for the Outlaw set. This is an incredibly interesting set. As you can see, we got a close-up on the screen now. Very unique appearance, and it's got a very fun effect, which of course we'll go into in the gear overview. Before we start today's episode, I just wanted to say there is another patch coming out for Shadow of War. There's no new massive content or anything. It's just a few bug fixes. For example, the spider bug, which could instantly kill captains, is now removed, and a few situations where army screen spaces weren't being filled, stuff like that. Pretty much, they were just all being hot fixed. But the most important bit, I would say, would be the fact that the Mask of the Undying is getting nerfed slightly. So, seeing how drastic that actually is, that we may end up having to redo a couple of things. It may cause us to use a few more different cloak pieces or whatever. But really, there's just a few minor changes that will be coming out. Of course, that is live today on Steam, but of course it'll take about a week before it gets into consoles, and I of course play on PS4. So of course in the gameplay, I'll still be able to use whatever. But yeah, pretty much I just wanted to say that quickly. As I said, on the screen here, we've got the Outlaw set. It's very interesting. It's got the overall aesthetic of the armour. It's kind of like scrap, kind of they sort of got armour that's sort of bolted on, and then it's also got this fur on the inside lining. It's very similar to the Warmonger armour that you get on captains, not the actual Warmonger you can get yourself, but just the Warmonger our captains do occasionally wear. Of course, actually has a bluish cloak, and the swords, and I tell you, the sword and dagger on this set look actually absolutely insane. They got that hollow sort of thing in the middle with lots of spikes and stuff, and so overall it is a very cool little set. Anyway, I'm going to go straight into the gear analysis, so I'll catch you in a bit. Okay, starting things off here, we have the Blackguard Sword. Level 80 as per usual, 169 damage, just like the other legendary swords. And this effect is 55% increased melee damage to enraged enemies with 10 critical hit chance. And I got this from Og the Pretender. It's a bit of a big joke because that was I think that was the first Pretender captain I ever got. I ended up getting Shag the Pretender later on, which is kind of cool. If you want to see a video where I use a Pretender captain to create infinite tower captains, that'll be linked to the top right. And yeah, that's pretty much a pretty standard sword. It looks very cool, as you can see there. But yeah, moving on, we have the Blackguard Dagger. It looks very similar to the sword. Dagger design represents the Fury of Mordor. It's the same for all of them. 80% increased stealth damage to enraged enemies. This one's quite interesting. It's a bit situational, of course, because if they're enraged, it's usually very hard to actually get a stealth attack on them. But hey, I'm sure someone's managed to figure a strategy out. Usually, I would suggest probably just getting someone to flee, then stealth attack the grunt and then just chain it onto them. That could be a very viable strategy. Critical hit damage is increased by 33%. Now, of course, stealth attacks actually inflict critical hit chance, so actually this is incredibly strong. You can just layer so much damage off, and of course with the damage gem, that is a very viable strategy to use with this dagger. Moving on, we have the Blackguard Bow, and of course this gives 55% increased range damage to enraged enemies, and a 25% chance to replenish an elf shot per ranged kill. Very good. The secondary effect on that is incredibly useful because you can just chain a bunch of kills together. If you get a bit of focus recovery on there, either through the prestige skills or maybe some other effect on your gear, you can just chain kills together. It's actually pretty good. And of course, the increased damage to enraged enemies, that's pretty good. Whenever someone's enraged, I always like to just go for a couple of headshots, and so effectively, you get a 3-for-2 deal there with that pretty much 50% increased damage. Moving on again, we have the Blackguard armour. This armour represents the Fury of Mordor. 55% less damage from enraged enemies. This is quite a funny effect because it effectively means when a captain is enraged, although they do receive a damage buff, this is actually higher, the damage resistance is higher than that damage buff from being enraged. So what that effectively means is when a captain's enraged and you're using this armor set, they're actually dealing less damage than if they weren't. Of course, they are attacking more frequently, so hey, whatever. Anyway, this also has a 25% chance to apply poison on critical hit. Pretty cool. Moving on, we have the Blackguard Cloak, and this of course does allied beasts deal 100% increased damage to enraged enemies. It's pretty awful, but if you like using beasts, hey, it's alright. And this also increases damage dealt by beast allies by 50%, so a combination of those two, 150% bonus damage, very good. And finally, we have the Blackguard Rune. This rune design represents the fury of Mordor. I kind of wish they came up with better descriptions. They just kind of make it the same for all of them. And this time, followers dealing 100% increased damage to enraged enemies. This one's actually very, very strong, because what often happens when you're having like a siege or whatever, if you get like an enraged captain, he ends up destroying all of your guys inside of your fortress, and so this should give them like the fighting chance to hopefully stand off a bit against him and actually have a chance of killing him, instead of just getting beaten and then you have to go resurrect them or revive them or whatever. And allied orcs take 50% less damage. Of course, very, very strong there. And looking at the set bonus, this is why the set's so fun. 25% chance to inflict fire, poison, frost, or curse upon an enemy on any hit. And of course, the set for 4 out of 4 is followers have the same effect, except it's 20%. This is a very, very, very cool effect. Of course, when you're just doing random attacks, you just go, ah, you're on fire, you're poisoned. And you can actually inflict all 4 of them at the same time. I have seen it happen, of course, it's very rare. But the point is it's an incredibly cool effect. Effectively, the whole idea of this set is that you're meant to cause your enemy to get enraged. Because you're inflicting every single element, chances are they're going to hate at least one of them, and so therefore you'll be able to take advantage of the extra damage. And of course, followers dealing that is actually kind of funny, because you end up getting followers that end up freezing opponents, which is a bit of a meme. And I must say, this set, it actually has like a mini sort of bug inside it. I'm not sure if it was deliberate or whatever, but effectively, you know, whenever you freeze a captain, they have a small delay, and they get like stuck, but then if they're frostproof, they break out of it. Well, if you're using the set, you can actually go in with 2 attacks, and the second attack, if the second attack actually applies to the frost, then that means you can actually do the flurry attack against the captain even though they're frostproof, just because of that split window where they are actually frozen. So if you can get two frost attacks in a row using the set, you can flurry any captain regardless of whether or not they are frostproof, which I think is very, very cool, considering frost resistance is one of the biggest shutdowns in the game. Because, of course, frost is like one of those elements. It's either incredibly strong, you can stun lock an opponent to death, or they are immune to it and it completely shuts down your build. So this sort of gives you a little workaround if you like using frost. Overall, I would say this is a very, very strong set. Of course, you want to be able to use this with other sort of things. I won't really bother going for the 4 out of 4 set bonus, though it is funny watching a bunch of like grunts run around and just setting on people on fire and poisoning them and stuff. That is kind of cool. But really, you just want to be using it for the 2 out of 2 set bonus. But regardless, if you want to take advantage of that 4 out of 4 set bonus, I would recommend swapping out the sword. Mainly because the 50% increased melee damage to enraged enemies, although that is very, very strong, I just feel like Humiliator is just the way to go. Of course, it's got the same secondary effect. I just run that. Of course, you could swap out the dagger, but as I said, if you can make enemies flee and you can chain attacks onto them, you can do some insane damage, so I like to keep that. The bow is very, very good. Ranged attacks are usually the safest way to deal damage to enraged enemies, so having the bonus damage is good. The armour is the second thing I would most likely swap out, but however, taking the less damage is usually pretty good, because if you're going in against berserkers or something, if one of them gets enraged, it can become incredibly hard to dodge all their attacks, and so if you get hit, you don't want to just get immediately killed. But the cloak here is definitely where the set falls short. This is a definite you just want to get rid of this. Unless, of course, you love using beasts. Oh yeah, look, that one's from Shag the Pretender, what a meme. I would heavily recommend getting rid of this one. I hate using beasts, really. I think, unless they're like Fear of Fire or something, then there's like no real point. And so what I would like to do is swap this out for the Mask of the Undying, which is now all the way over here. There we go. Just so you can get that unlimited Waters of Glory and Spectral Dash, and of course the bonus damage. It's grossly overpowered. You don't have to worry about getting the set bonus on this one because it's completely useless. And so yeah, that is how I would most likely run it. Of course, the actual appearance of the armor set running this way doesn't look particularly good, but hey, it's just whatever. Of course, if you were to end up doing the 2 out of 2 set, then I would recommend getting rid of the armor and maybe the dagger. I mean, I like using the dagger personally, so maybe you want to get rid of the rune. It's up to you, really. Of course, this is how I would run it, though, if you want to take advantage of the 4 out of 4 set. A lot of you were saying that you would like to see more epic effects sort of being worked into my builds. And the truth is I don't actually have access to most of the special effects. I actually got incredibly lucky that I got this Humiliator sword. Of course, there are tons of other ones. For example, you can get cloaks that make you invisible, and all sorts of other cool effects. but I just don't have them on this playthrough. Once I've done that, I might actually do an analysis of all the epic effects and see which ones I like the most. But for now, this is how I'm going to run it. Of course, I still haven't gotten the full legendary effects, and so there could actually be a situation where swapping out some of these things for another legendary set would be very good. I know in particular, using the Warmonger set alongside the Machine set is very, very fun, and so I'll make sure to do them to like last, so I actually have access to those. But overall, from the poll that I saw, a lot of you were just asking for me to do the Dark build first. Of course, I'm doing the Slaughter one next, because that's the DLC ones out of the way. But in terms of the base game, you wanted me to do Dark first. And so I'll be doing the Poison Explosion build next. Of course, I've got to get 4 legendary things, so that'll be lots of fun. But effectively, guys, this is what the build I'm going to be running in the gameplay. At the beginning cutscene, I actually don't have it on because I forgot to switch the armour over before I did that. But I do switch out literally just as the siege begins. So have fun looking at that gameplay, and I'll catch you in a bit.
No man has held back the shadow as long as you, Talion. As long as you endure, hope remains.
Thought of 5 ways to kill you, but I only need 1.
Take a look. You're outnumbered. Just give it up and let us gut you properly.
Kneel, Orc! You fight for me.
Yeah, combining efforts is a wise choice! I'm with you.
Aggro! Try that!
Resist. You will fight at my side.
I will serve the Great Lord. My blade is yours.
From the fire! Watch out for the Throw yourself into the melee. Why not? Help me!
Listen, if I blow up your body, how long you think it'll take before the pieces come raining down?
I am gonna bleed you slow and savor every second of it. You will join me.
What do you wish of me? Suppose I have to watch your back now. Your team's outnumbered in the square!
They say a little bit of poison goes a long way. Well, I've put a lot of poison on this, and I'm eager to see what it does to you. I still have strength yet.
Alright guys, that was the siege. As you saw in that gameplay, absolutely destroyed it. The set is very, very viable. I think it's one of the best sets you can actually use, because enraged enemies are usually the bane of my existence. But of course this set allows you to shut them down incredibly quickly. Although it is not as strong as some of the high damaging builds, such as using the Vengeance set, or maybe even using Marauder or Slaughter. But it still is a pretty good way to go. If you like a bit of random, a bit of chaos in your life, then this one's pretty good to go for. Of course, though, if you wanted to go full nuts mode, I would recommend using the Machine or Warmonger sets. Those ones will be coming out later, but of course, I want to try and get both of those sets going at the same time, because they work very well together. But anyway, guys, I have so many to say. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Don't forget to leave a like and all that other fancy stuff. Pretty much. Have a wonderful day, and cue the music.